She had died only a few moments later, her wheezes subsiding to hollow silence. All was quiet, and the room the more dreadful for it. Kester had not wept, only remained at her side, still holding on to her hand, which gradually turned icy as the next day rose behind him. In the solitude following her death, he forgot her final words, submerged in the grief of losing his only parent. However, a few days after, when he had a chance to compose himself, he found himself recollecting that strange, foreign-sounding name. In his practical way, he had immediately set about searching for her leather-bound address book. He located Ribero's name straight away, the only R in the book. There was no phone number beside it, only a tightly folded, official-looking letter tucked into the page. It was a strange note, indicating a level of intimacy between sender and recipient. But beyond that, he couldn't discern much, only the name and address of the mysterious agency. A search on the internet revealed nothing. Likewise, a visit to the library and a flick through the business directories drew another dead end. Who is this strange man, he wondered, and how had Mother known him? In spite of his grief, which was still raw, his interest was piqued. And so it was that he found himself here, a fortnight later, armed with nothing more than his toothbrush, a change of clothes, and a book, standing outside the curious door. It doesn't look like much of a business, he thought. He peered through the window of the shop next door, hoping to see a member of staff to whom he could ask a few questions. However, he couldn't see a soul through the tie-dyed blouses and velvet waistcoats, only his own owlish reflection staring back at him. Kester was only 22, but his image suggested older. Wispy hair already starting to thin, watery eyes floating behind thick spectacles, not to mention the paunch tucked uncomfortably into his ironed slacks. He was the very epitome of middle-aged academic, squeezed inexpertly into a younger man's body. He turned away, refusing to dwell on his appearance, and focusing instead on the problem at hand. He'd travelled a long way. Should he simply retreat, board the train, and go home again? Exeter was nicer than he'd expected, with its squat cathedral and swarming streets. Its people bobbed along pavements like contented honeybees, and, in spite of his melancholic mood, he was reluctant to leave it so quickly. The city's blend of traditionalism and modernity soothed his spirit in a manner that he hadn't enjoyed for many months, making him feel a bit more like his former self. However, this forgotten alleyway reeked of an earlier era. The 21st century hadn't touched its cobbled streets. The atmosphere of the Dickensian era still roamed unabated, uninterrupted by modern glass frontages or neon signs. It hung from the wrought-iron lampposts and the dark beams overhead. It pressed against him in the very weight of those red-bricked walls. Edging forwards, he studied the door more intently and pondered what to do. There was no intercom, no bell, no buzzer to alert the people inside of his presence. It went against every ingrained rule of etiquette to rap upon such an uninviting entrance. But rap he must, if he was going to solve the mystery of the strange Dr. Ribero. Delicately, he knocked. The door felt oddly spongy underneath his fist, like brine-soaked wood that had dried out in the sun. Kester decided unreservedly that this was the most unpleasant door he had ever encountered in his 22 years of life. There was no answer. The alleyway lingered with the echo of his fist. Somewhere nearby, a bird cawed, taking off in a clatter of feathers. He shivered, in spite of the afternoon's warmth. So, what am I supposed to do now? He wondered. I've spent 50 quid on a train ticket, £40 for a room for the night, and it doesn't even look like the building's occupied. It was frustrating, but also a relief. The whole experience thus far had been far too surreal for his liking, and now he felt that he had license to depart with a clear conscience. I tried my best, Mother, Kester thought. He smoothed his sweaty fringe and gave the door a final once-over. Obviously, it just wasn't.